here and then there.
Well, doesn't I think that I'm a little uncomfortable with the idea that we have to sort of that there are dichotomies. Either we're this or we're that in terms of this space. I think that's rather, it's false. Thank you. I think it's a rather false dichotomy. It doesn't exist. That dichotomy doesn't exist. I don't know that it ever really purely has existed. It's impossible, I think, for it to have, been such a concrete existence. The example of the Friendster, I think, brings us back again to date in terms of where we are. So beyond just the neighborhoods and brick and mortar and, can we just live here, and certainly the very well articulated issues that Susan has brought up in terms of the diaspora being on the move. We're already there in many regards. We'll continue to be. But the one thing that I think is really important is the cyber spatial relationships. As Susan was talking, we're all kind of connected to people all over the world. My grandmother knows more about what's happening in cyberspace than I do. She's collected friends from places that I never heard of. But also the media presentation of what it means to be queer has changed drastically in the last 10 years. Our presence in media, logo, etc., is very different. And so whether we're talking about how do we exist in the Castro, not to back to what Dan was saying, it's not that I don't think that we are just singularly in existence in the Castro. That's what makes us queer. But and that's the only place that really has meaning symbolically or what have you to be queer. But I think that there's also another place, there's another dimension here in terms of the exposure or the articulation or the feedback, etc. In terms of gay fiction, how many people watch, reruns of Queer as Folk or L Word every week or what? So that has also, so other people other than queer people are entering the conversation in a way that I don't think was imagined 10 years ago.
So let's do this. We're near close time. So what I want to do is give everybody kind of an opportunity for a short 1 minute final thought. So Tito, do you want to start?
Yeah. First, I want to talk a little bit about what you said. At one point, we were Ellis acted, me and my partner, from our building, and then people said, "No problem, just move to Oakland." And I was thinking of a tradition of displacement that is in American history. It's kind of like, okay, we need to go somewhere. We go here, and the people are there. That was first thing for me. We're going like, I'm displacing other people, predominantly African American families, and I didn't want to do that. Secondly, also as a younger person coming to a certain place, I had certain references, and I went for it, and they worked for me. However, people who come, people who are now 19, 18 years old, do they have to reinvent the wheel? What are their, like you were talking with your example, I think that's a perfect example, that sometimes you need a reference. And then talking about the Castro, like I talked about the paradigm, you can use it the way you want. You can use it as a village, you can use it as your capital, you can use it as your tourist center, but at least there is an opportunity that you can. And that, for me, is very important, next to the fact that I learned that the American system works also politically with a geographical base. In the Netherlands, I also saw, and also in Germany, history shows, and I also come from a very multicultural. My mom is actually also Dutch Indonesian Jewish, and my father's Dutch Catholic, which already creates a problem right there. And also, they came from several parts of the world, being refugees. So it's kind of like you sometimes need a certain kind of place where you can say, okay, you don't necessarily have to live there, but sometimes you can visit. Like I know that my ancestors came from India as a Jewish family. So I went there, and I went to the synagogue, and I saw it, and it was very interesting. And the guy there asked me, are you white Jewish, brown Jewish, or black Jewish? And then I started laughing, and kind of like, okay, that's enough. That's not my community. And then I move on, and I move to here. So it's what you choose to be, but at least there should be a place where you can identify, and I think it's important for the past, for now, and for people who come after.
Thank you. Thank you.
I wanted to address your experience on Friendster, because there's two things there. One, in terms of who has access. The folks that are at the library using internet or at the center using it is very different than folks who, like at my house, where you can just kind of be on the computer all day long. And the other thing is about people who are experiencing multiple forms of marginalization, to be able to occupy the center for any length of time, to be able to identify as I'm being who I am and what I am is important, and how I identify is important. Even brief moments of that are so empowering that I think that we can't dismiss it, because it doesn't happen very often for so many of us, which is very much a part of the work that I do as an artist who's a queer person of color, and what that is for me to take up that center space either as a performer or as someone who's allowing other people to have that space, and what it means to bring my experiences or other experiences into the forefront to be seen. Because as wonderful as logo might be, you don't often see people like me on it, and that's just the reality. Which is why we do the work that we do. And the other thing about diaspora is that for those of us who are coming into this new diaspora maybe as queers, but we've come from a diaspora in terms of our cultural communities or spiritual communities, there's something about taking home with you wherever you go that I think we don't talk about very often, because some of us are very used to having our neighborhood or our town or whatever it is, but all of my people have migrated from somewhere or migrating to somewhere. So who I am as a person isn't necessarily tied to a sense of home and a place. It goes with me where I go. But the thing about having a place that no one can move me from is also really important. Not to be policed out of a place or out of a community, or Ellis acted out, or priced out. All of those notions of being able to have a stable place in which to have the life that I want to have is really important to me. And I think that not just in terms of living as who I am, but as artists as well, who have been pushed out of San Francisco. Because one of the things that makes this entire Bay Area so attractive are all of the artists and all of our little fun all of our ways of being and recreating community and space through our art. That's what makes it important for other people to be here. Not just what we're doing in terms of our jobs, but what are we getting out of it? What are the cultural factors that are renewing us and inspiring us to go forward? So.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Susan?
I feel really fortunate that I have a secure place to live in San Francisco. I just put that right out there. I feel hopeful, actually, about the city and about queer life in the city. Looking at it as a historian, it's like, I think this place has been so fucking queer since about 1848. I mean, it's like no place else on earth. It is a really interesting place to live and to watch and to study. I thought in the 1990s that life as we knew it in San Francisco was going to come to an end. I thought the dot-com boom was like a forest fire raging through here, and that it burned out a lot of the undergrowth, and that the only thing that survived were the big trees. Or like, I've heard other people talk about it as like the tsunami that came through and washed everything away. And I just remember how hard it was, like, to keep this organization's head above water, in those years as the water was rising higher, just like trying to like bring in more and more money and ride that wave. And it, as the bust happened and everything, got washed away to Oakland or Portland or Phoenix or wherever. I thought for a while, it's like, God, this place is a ghost town. It is nothing like the city that I fell in love with, and I've just been really pleased at watching a lot of new life come into the spaces that opened up. It's like there was loss. There was definitely loss. Like the community that was here, like, doesn't really exist the way that it did 10 years ago, even. And so I just even thinking back, like, well, what was it like, 20, 40, 60, years ago? It's like I can just imagine that. But I watch people who are in their teens and 20s and 30s like make these like really interesting lives for themselves here, find new niches to be in, and it's like it's going to be their city. It's not going to be my city. I think until the water gets too deep, San Francisco is going to have a really strong queer presence.